to winter, you probably like that stuff like snow and all that stuff.
Not anymore.
I'll see, I lived there for 5 years and I'm done. To winter, you probably like that stuff like snow and all that stuff.
Sorry.
Yeah, Sherry, yeah, I mean, Sherry's from New Jersey. So she grew up with this stuff. She's had enough. So even Sherry will tell you that snow is well, I tell people snow is what God uses to cover the bad part of the world for 3 or 4 months out of the year. We have no snow in Zambia, and that's the way. I like it. So we don't have any snow. We do have lots of rain right now, which is good. But again, I was looking for a place where God could use me. I didn't really care where. I contacted a mission organization and I said, where would you send somebody who had 7, 8 years of experience working with young people, had a background in music, and had a high school level French capability? And they said, well, as a matter of fact, we've got a letter here from a man in Zaire who's older, who wants some help with young people in Zaire. And I said, great, great. Where is Zaire? Because I had no clue. And he said, well, it's it's the Belgian Congo. It used to be the Belgian Congo. And I said, oh, great, missionary to the Congo. How ironic is that? But we came to Zaire, then my wife, my 2 children, and I. We even brought the dog because I wanted our kids to have something from home. And so we brought the dog along. And we were in Zaire until things became untenable. And after about 7 years, it became very obvious that being in Zaire was not going to be safe. And so there were more than one evacuation. During one of the evacuations, the president of Zambia came to me in a hotel where we were meeting. We were staying with friends, but we were meeting at the hotel with a bunch of other missionaries from all over the place. And he came up to me and he said, I've heard about what you're doing in Zaire. Would you consider coming to Zambia and working here? And I said, well, Mr. President, I really appreciate your offer, but I really feel like God wants me in Zaire. And I really believe that until it got to the point where the church leaders in Zaire said, you're coming to Zaire, you're coming across the border as an American, puts all of us in danger. And I said, well, why? Well, the president hates America. I said, well, I don't work for the American government. Didn't matter. Over the course of a few months, I was arrested at the border because I was an American. And so I got to spend 3 days under house arrest by the government of Zaire. And after 3 days, they threw my passport to me and said, in very rough Swahili and or French, told me to go. So I took the Missionary Aviation Fellowship pilot was doing his last flight out of Zaire. And I said, do you need a passenger? He said, well, all I've got are a few things that are left over from other missionaries, but yeah, I've got a seat for you. So I sat in the co-pilot seat with a shirt that had the epaulets on it. I'm not a pilot. I don't pretend to be, but he said, sit here so we can get out of the airport. So we went through all the stuff and he introduced me as his co-pilot. And we got out of Lubumbashi, out of Zaire, landed in Ndola in Zambia. And I walked up and had my passport in my hand, and the looked at my passport. And he said, you have no exit stamp from Zaire. And he said, in fact, you've got no exit stamp. You've got no entrance stamp in the Zaire, nor do you have an exit stamp from Zambia. And I said, well, I explained to him, I was stopped at the border, taken into Zaire. They took my passport, and he was very rough. He did not like what was going on. The Zambian was very rough, and he
So we've lost sound.
I don't know if it's on our end or yours.
You didn't hear what he said.
He hears because he stopped.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Oh,
Now we can hear you.
Okay, it wasn't my fault. How about?
I'm not sure. Just stop.
It just stopped. Yeah, it just cut out.
Well, our internet is always dicey here, and we're even using Starlink, and that isn't always working full time. By the way, if the power goes out here, which it could any time, I'll be gone for about 10 minutes while I restart the generator and restart the internet. So
Good to know.
it isn't that I don't love you, but if the power goes out, I'm gonna go blank.
All right.
Just warning you. I'll go out, start at the generator, and be back in about 7 or 8, maybe 10 minutes.
All right.
Okay.
So I go back into Zambia only to find out that our son was in Longview, Texas at LaTerna University and had gotten very sick. And the doctor was trying to figure out what it was. Well, come to find out it was bilharzia. Another name for it is schistosomiasis, which is a microscopic snail rather, that burrows under the skin and it makes you very sick to the point of being fatal. Well, the doctor said there was a medicine he could try, and I said, great. He said, I need authorization. I said, great, you've got it. He said, no, I need somebody here to give authorization. And I said, well, you understand that I'm in Zambia and you're in Texas. My pen doesn't reach that far. He said, I'm sorry, you need to be here. So, okay, I quickly booked a flight and got to Texas, got to where got to where Christopher was, signed the paper, the doctor gave him the medicine, and within 48 hours, he was fine. But it took a 36-hour flight to make that happen. So, and of course, this is coming up Resurrection Sunday. It's the whole holiday season. So I'm stuck in Texas for 2 weeks, trying to get back. Well, you know, there are worse places to be than Texas. My wife is not sure that that's true, but we have friends there. I've got family there. So we spent 2 weeks in Texas before we could get back to Zambia. When we got back to Zambia, this was now late March, April in 1994. Our family got back together and we're moving right along. Chandra, our daughter, was at Rift Valley Academy in Kenya going to school. Christopher had obviously taken the semester off to get well. So in July, we were going to go to our daughter's graduation from Rift Valley Academy. On the way to Ndola, the next town over, we were hit by a drunk driver and my wife was killed instantly. Our 5-year-old was in the backseat, had two broken legs. So everything was topsy-turvy. And honestly, I didn't know what to do. I'd never been in that kind of situation, but I'd been through so many situations. Again, 2 evacuations from Congo, from Zaire, going through all the having the joy of spending 3 days under house arrest in a house I didn't know. It wasn't even my house. It was some other residence. So all these things are kind of happening. And then Christopher gets sick. I make a quick trip to Texas. I come back. And then 3 months later, Cindy is killed. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I never lost my desire to serve God in Africa. In fact, I fell in love with the place. Again, I told you in '85, it was a 3-year short-term mission. After 3 years, I went back to the States, sold my business, sold the house, and came back to Africa. And so this is where God wants us to be. I felt complete peace about being in Africa. Then Cindy is killed. Well, I knew because we had this conversation. Missionaries have those conversations, the what ifs. And what if I die? What if she dies? I knew what she wanted because we'd had the conversation. So I took her back to California, where I'm from. And Cindy's buried there because she said, the kids will want to go to a grave. They'll want to visit the grave. I don't do that. I've been to the grave once, a year after her death, to make sure the plate was straight. But otherwise, I don't really do cemeteries. I know that she's not there. Her body is there. My parents are a few yards from her. My grandparents are a few yards from them. It's all in the same cemetery. But I just don't go to cemeteries because, again, I know where they are. So I came, and I was told, by the way, by the missions director at the time, you can't go back to Africa. An African killed your wife. And I said, no. A drunk driver killed my wife. And that could have happened in Dallas. It could have happened in Los Angeles. Could have happened in New York. It happened in Africa. But I'm going home. Well, against his advice, I came back to Zambia, and God continued to bless. I was working at discipling church leaders, working with young people still, discipling them. And many of those young people that I discipled during that time are now church leaders in various churches around Zambia. So it wasn't a good time, but it was a very fruitful time. Cindy left a legacy of service, and our children went through that issue. I found a good counselor for them, and we had good long conversations. Our daughter went through a tough time with me because when I married Sherry, her maternal grandmother said that I was disrespecting her mother's memory. And 10 years, we had a very strained relationship, and that's putting it mildly. She has since realized that Dad still loves her. She has realized that Sherry loves her. We have a good relationship now. All of my children have become our children. They all call her Mom, and I'm, of course, Pop. And then our grandchildren, I'm Mom, I'm Pop, and she's Mom. And we have 4 grandchildren, and a step grandchild. I don't even like to use that word, but our daughter married a widower who had a teenage daughter. So all of my kids are involved in church. All of my kids actually like us, which is a good thing, because that isn't always the case, especially when you're involved in ministry and your kids see the things that people do and the things that you have to capitulate and direct people and guide people. But they've all come around. They all love us. We had a phone call on Christmas Day. Our son from Germany, he's in the Air Force with his wife and 2 of our grandchildren. Our daughter was driving from Odessa or Midland, Texas to Dallas. So she and her husband were in the car having a conversation. And then we've had a conversation later with our other son and his wife in Kansas. So being this far away means that none of our holidays include family. I've not had a holiday, I've not had a Christmas with my biological children for 18 years. But we have another family here. We have our church family. We've got our community. Sherry's very involved in the community. We have an outreach into literally the community in helping people with various projects and stuff. We both teach at the Bible Institute, which has been literally shut down because of COVID, and continues to be shut down because the government then added a bunch of restrictions on to the school, structure-wise, infrastructure-wise. So we're finally planning to start again in January. It's been frustrating dealing with government functionaries because our school is a higher standard than other schools in the area, but we're private, they're government. So they get a pass on a lot of things, including how many toilets per student. So we've added toilets, we've added desks, we've added a library, we've added all kinds of things. And God's provided those things. So we are looking forward to starting in a couple of, probably 4 weeks from now. So again, every time there's a closed door, we look for the open one. Now, several years ago, a singer by the name of Dallas Holm wrote a song or sang a song that said, if God closes a door, look for a window. No, only thieves come through windows. I happen to know that because we have bars on all the windows in our house, because it's not a safe place to be. If God closes a door, he will open another door. And he has many, many times. And again, going back to one of my initial statements about being 70, people keep asking, when you're gonna retire? My kids keep saying, when you gonna come home? And I said, well, I come home every day. My home is right here in Lawancha. And this is where we live, and this is where we come home to. We don't have a residence per se in the United States. Sherry's official residence is her sister's house, so she can vote. My official residence is my parents' house. They're both gone, and my nephew lives there now. So I get to vote in California. Having said that, my ballot for the last election still has not arrived. So I guess that I'm not going to worry about it at this point, especially being in California. I don't know how many red votes are actually being cast there. But as we go through our lives in ministry and we watch God open doors, we're amazed by the fact that God just opens doors. We have been able to work with a number of church leaders. I mentioned our local family. We raised 7 Zambian children, and one of them is an elder in the church where Sherry and I attend on a regular basis. Now, I'm also in other churches around the area, but John Walia is an elder in Fellowship Chapel. And in fact, he preached today, did a good job preaching. So his children are there. And so when they come to church, Sherry and I are grandma and grandpa, because we have these children, and people look at us and say, well, how can your grandparents be, white? Well, because that's the way they are. Another one of our Zambian kids who lives in China came to visit us over the Christmas holiday and was here for about 2 weeks, just under 2 weeks. And again, he's introducing us to all of his friends here. He's been gone 6 years. And, this is my dad, this is my mom, and people look kind of funny because we don't look quite as dark as he does. But, love is blind when it comes to color. And Andrew is our son. John is our son. Dixon, Shadrach, Nancy, these are our children because, well, the Ministry of Social Welfare in Zambia put us in charge of them back in the year 2000. So for the last 24 years, they've been our kids. And they're involved in church. And it's interesting, Andrew, being in China, cannot worship openly. But he has a group of friends around him, and they ask him questions. As long as you ask a question about religion, you can answer it. So he's been building a small group of people around him, including one young lady with whom he's very attracted to, I say. And he said, Dad, she's not a believer, but she's grown up in China. And the religion in China, of course, is atheism. So when you talk about Christianity, all she knows is the junk that she sees on YouTube with, the people jumping up and down and handling snakes and doing all these strange things. And she said, when I told her that I was a Christian, her eyes rolled. And so we had a long conversation, and I said to her, understand that Christianity is not a religion. And she said, oh, I thought it was, I said, no, Christianity is not a religion. It's a way of life. We do what we do because we can. We do what we do because, well, the love of God. Jesus Christ died for me. He saved me. I've received him as my savior. So I now live not to be saved, but I live because I'm praising the one who saved me. And she scratches her head and she said, that's really hard to understand because that is completely opposite of their philosophy in China, where everything you do is for now because there is no afterlife. There is no future. So she looks at this and she has a hard time figuring it out. But I met a man in Hong Kong a few months ago, and I contacted him and I said, our son, our Zambian son, is in China. There's a young lady with whom he is dating, and she's not a believer, but she's asking questions. So he sent me back a note and said, well, I'm in Hong Kong, but I go back and forth into China. So he said, give me the contact details and he'll be able to work with Andrew and explain to Holly, that's her anglicized name, explain to Holly what Christianity is all about. So my prayer request for that is pray for Holly. Now you would just like Christmas Holly, Holly. Pray for Holly because she's asking questions. She's seeking the truth, and Andrew's doing his best. And now we've got another friend who's going to be able to share with her what Christianity is all about and do it in Chinese. Now, Andrew speaks Chinese, but my friend is Chinese. And so he'll be able to talk with her a little more clearly. And it's exciting to know that halfway around the world, well, first of all, you're meeting in the morning. I'm here in the late afternoon. The people in Hong Kong have already had their church because it's nearly midnight there for them. So all around the world, the gospel's being preached all around the world. People are being encouraged through scripture and through leaders. So pray for Holly, pray for Andrew, because he's very concerned that Holly become a believer. Because, well, he's infatuated that he's not said I love her, but he really, really, really likes her. So pray for Andrew, pray for Holly. Well, I've gone on for about 30 minutes. Are there any questions you have?
So in Zambia, are you free to do whatever you want? I know you have problems with the school right now, but are you free to do what you want? Are churches allowed to pretty much
Yes.
do what they want?
During COVID, they shut all the churches down. Interestingly enough, they didn't shut down the bars, but politicians own bars and politicians don't own churches. And then they let up a little bit. We could meet for 1 hour a week. And then they loosened that up, and now it's, of course, COVID is basically no more than a bad cold. So we're able to meet whenever, and the church is open. We had a Christmas morning service, and we had people coming in. So there's we have no restrictions at all on when or how we meet, and that's a good thing. The Christian Resource Center is busy all the time, especially during the school holiday, because children come in and will pick a book off the shelf and read it. And we're still having church leaders, deacons, elders coming in and studying. And again, they're surprised by the fact that it's free. But I said God made it possible, so we still have people coming in, and there are no restrictions on us at all.
Good to hear.
Other questions? You're all sitting very politely.
Trying to think of questions.
Well, the weather right now is warm. And it's, our temperatures are between 80, 85 every day.
Wow.
And when the rain shows up, it drops it down a few degrees. So that's nice. But then we have the humidity. So this is the only time of the year when we actually have any humidity, because we're about the same elevation as Denver. So we're about a mile high. So very little humidity. Except this time of year when we have rain, and we have rain almost every day for maybe 3 or 4 months.
Interesting.
One other thing, do you meet with a lot of the other missionaries in Zambia, or are you more by yourself?
The other missionaries are literally hours away by road.
Oh.
In the rainy season, it could be where a 4-hour trip could end up being a 12-hour trip.
Wow.
So they're basically up at the hospital. There's a school for missionaries, and it's way up in northwestern Zambia. So I don't see the missionaries very often. They come through from time to time. We did have a very nice visit with Tim and Joy Beer a few weeks ago. They came through because they were in Zambia for years, and now they're working with CMML, and they came through and spent a few days just to see how we're doing. I asked him to preach or to speak at one of the vernacular churches. So he felt right at home. He used a bit of his language, but it's a different language group here. So he spoke in English. It was translated into Bemba, which is the major language here. And then Joy went with Sherry to the English-speaking church, English-speaking assembly where John is the elder, and listened to John preach. It was nice to have people from home come and visit, but and they recognize the fact that we are home here. But the other missionaries, again, we're a little bit off the beaten path, so we don't see them very often. We do communicate with them, the joy of email and Zoom. But we, again, during the rainy season, travel is a bit more difficult.
How big is Zambia compared to what we might understand here, like Texas or?
Texas, yeah, about the size of Texas.
Okay.
It is shaped like a liver. You know, it's got a weird shape, almost cut in half by Congo. But for me to get from where I am to the other side of Zambia, I have to go around that tip that almost cuts Zambia in half. And so if I went direct, it might be 4 or 5 hour trip. Because I've got to go around the tip, it takes about 9 hours. So again, not a trip I make often.
Right.
The school, I'm the governor, I'm a governor at a Christian school called Chingelo, and that school is in Makushi, which is, if you look at a map of Zambia, it's just below the tip of where Congo cuts into Zambia. So that's about a 4.5 hour drive, and we meet 3 times a year. And again, it was started by farmers who were they had an assembly there in Makushi. So when their kids got older, they had to find a place to put them. So instead of sending them off to boarding school like we used to, they now have a school there, and that's actually where our son graduated from high school. So I'm and in that case, I do meet with a few of the missionaries who are working in that area. Now, come on, I know you're getting over Christmas, but you've got to have something you want to ask.
I think that's it for me.
Have you all Googled Zambia so you know what's going on here?
No, is there anything political going on, or is it stable compared to other places? I know like Nigeria is having problems and stuff.
Well, Nigeria has a problem with the Muslims up in the northwestern corner. Mozambique is having problems because of, well, Mozambique has always had problems. So they're having riots right now. Congo has never had peace. Even when I lived there, there was never at peace. So there's fighting going on in 2 different places in Congo. In fact, right now, on the continent of Africa, there are 8 armed conflicts going on right now. Zambia is peaceful. In fact, many of the warring factions will come to Zambia to have their peace talks. Even when there was the the fighting in South Africa against apartheid and the riots that were going on, the parties that were involved in the fighting would come to Zambia to talk because it was seen as neutral ground. So basically, Zambia is like the Switzerland of Africa, but we don't have the money. We don't have the banks here that they have in Switzerland. But people are very peaceful. They're not prone to violence. They will talk you to death, but that's one of the reasons people come here to have peace talks. The president is a professing Christian, and I say it that way because professing Christian, but he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he doesn't mess around on his wife. The previous president was usually drunk by 10 o'clock in the morning, and was actually building a house for his girlfriend in Eswatini, or Swaziland, it used to be called. So the morality issue has been a problem. The current president is a very moral person, and very open to allowing churches to function freely. So I think if he had been president during COVID, we wouldn't have seen the churches being shut down like the previous president. So it's a very peaceful situation and very conducive to the gospel. But I guess one of the problems we have when you have a country that is so free, sometimes Christians get lazy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't require anything to be a believer. So if it doesn't require anything, anybody can do it. So people show up when they want to. And they're not overly enthusiastic about, sharing the gospel. The message I'm going to preach to you in an hour or in 30 minutes now talks about just that. Because people are lackadaisical. It's too easy to be a Christian. When I was in Congo and the Congolese government began shutting down churches, and mainly they were shutting them down because they saw the missionaries as being a threat because of our skin color. And this was Mobutu. It was not the current government. The current government is struggling, but they don't have that kind of a problem. But when they began shutting down churches, people began to meet in homes. They had the home Bible study. They had the cell groups. And where Christianity struggles, it actually grows. The church in China is growing, but we don't have cathedrals. We don't have big buildings. Nobody walks around with a songbook. You don't have choirs because it's illegal. Where Christianity is easy, people are lackadaisical, and it's, as I said, it's almost too easy. So our challenge in Zambia is not, as someone was talking about, reaching the unreached. The problem in Zambia is not that people are unreached, it is that they are misreached. They have an easy believism gospel. The prosperity gospel is very big here. And you got the preachers who are watching the American preachers, and they begin to preach like them. And if you send me, or if you put 1,000 kwacha, which 1,000 kwacha is not a whole lot of money. It sounds massive, but 1,000 kwacha is maybe $40 US. If you put 1,000 kwacha in the plate, God will bless you with many thousands back. Of course, it's all foolishness, but they've seen rich preachers in America, and they mimic them. So again, part of the problem we have is it's too easy. I hate to say we need persecution, but persecution usually brings about a stronger church. The whole right side of the auditorium, your left side, is very quiet.
That's how we divide it here. We can take our break now and just come back in 30 minutes and
Fine.
start. We're not that locked on time, so we could do our fellowship a little bit earlier and then
Well, enjoy yourself.
return.
I'm gonna have a glass of iced tea. because it's too hot for coffee. So,
Even in 85 degrees, I'd be with coffee.
well, I do coffee, but tea is nice. And we do a lot of cold drinks when it gets
Yeah,
to
I
this
can
hot.
imagine.
All righty. So
All
I'll see
right,
you.
so we will,
I'll see you in about 40 minutes,
30.
30 minutes.
Yeah, let's do 30. We'll just start a little bit early.
All right. See you then.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.